can actually remove the doors that Locke is supposed to unlock, because those are technically NPCs. So you could see people completely sequence breaking like that. It does look like we're underway, however. We do know that Terra is guaranteed as a starting character, but we're also seeing a Mog and a Locke, and it looks like we got Rage, Health, and Slot for abilities.
It's a solid spread for the start of the game. I'm always happy to see health early, and certainly runners more talented than myself can do a lot of things with the slots command. So we'll see how these runners kick off the seed. Shout out to Mildane for winning the Eye Bleed contest with his menu selection there.
Yeah, it's a choice that Mildane has chosen to make today with the good old Demon Chocobo background there.
And already popping off some NPCs.
See, that's the thing, is that I haven't had a chance to mess around with these flags, so I'm really excited to see what little things we can do, and I'm glad that Mildane's just like, you know what, I'm not even walking these 3 tiles around here, I'm just getting rid of all these, and we're just going to go straight past there. Just look like Mr. Entity is going to do these lock checks early, however, but having a lock obviously changes that.
That is true. We were all excited about seeing the remove NPC flag for this, but having a lock makes that a lot easier. And kicking off an Aura Lance, certainly the best spear in the game, something you're always excited to see, particularly fans of Dragoon combo.
Yep, and the other choice there being the Aegis Shield. So with that Terra in their party, I would not be surprised if pretty much all of our runners decide that one of their early plays is going to be to go back to World of Balance Narsh, go up there, do that Welk play, grab that other item that's behind that, because if you do pick up whatever choice you do end up making from that lock weapon shop check in the World of Ruin does spawn behind the Welk check. So I wouldn't be too surprised, you see people go back there and grab that as well, because those are both pretty good items to have early on.
For sure. We also see Curse Shield's going to take 69 battles to turn into a Paladin Shield, and as nice as that may be, I don't think we're going to see a Paladin Shield this seed.
I don't think so either, but I do think we just saw what's probably going to be the absolute most coveted relic of this flag set over on Mildane's side, as he picked up an experience egg from that clock. And in this flag set, where boss experience is off, having the ability to double your experience on any party member is going to really cut down on any level grinding they have to do later.
For sure. Always happy to see that, and obviously the earlier the better. I am very excited to see how these runners deal with leveling up their party. And experience egg is absolutely the thing you want to really jumpstart that.
Yeah, I have a feeling what you'll see is probably you'll probably see at least 1 or 2 runners decide, okay, I'm gonna try and just find a good enemy set and grind on that. But I think what I would do personally is I would prioritize all of those fixed encounter checks. You have a Terra, go sailing down the river. If it's a good encounter set, go in circles around the river once you find tents on sort of the vanilla grind spot that you might have used as a kid when you were first playing this back on the Super Nintendo. We are, however, seeing down on Brianna's side, she has taken her first boss check, and it is Tentacles, I believe, at the Welk spot.
Yes, indeed. And we do have normalized and distorted stats on bosses for this seed. So in addition to the bosses not giving any experience, they're also a little harder than you remember. Or at least most of the early game bosses are. Though we see Mog running a Blowfish, that'll do a big chunk of damage. Uh-oh. Unless you get seized.
Yeah, this is the unfortunate thing, is that's actually pretty nasty of an early boss encounter with distort stats on and only having the 2 characters. You kind of, or the 3 characters, you kind of want that 4th one even to just sort of avoid that getting grabbed. You want to try and find running shoes, and she does take a wipe to it, but I think she'll be back pretty soon because it's not exactly undoable. Another thing I want to touch on real quick is the rages that she's found. Cactrot, which she has, is going to do that 1,000 damage with Blowfish pretty easily. There's a few other good ones in there. Behemoth sticks out as one that can cast a meteor, if I'm remembering correctly, unless I'm confusing that with another Behemoth. And I saw Doom Dragon in there as well, which can also be a pretty nasty one to use.
Doom Dragon, definitely a nasty, nasty rage. Meanwhile, Mr. Entity digging through the Imperial base, finding some pretty good loot. I saw a Thunder Shield, Hero Ring, and a ribbon in there. We see Jevrox digging through it now. Obviously, an extremely treasure-rich area of the game, and some of these chests are really paying out.
Yeah, and if Brianna goes down there and she finds that ribbon and the running shoes, then that will take care of her problems that she had with that Welk fight. She can just go straight there, pop those running shoes on, pop the ribbon on. None of her party members can be slowed, meaning that only one of them can be grabbed, and you can probably get through it at that point in time. It might be a little bit rough. You might still want to look for a bit more offense, but it's potentially doable with those two items.
Mr. Entity doing that random invisible check in the cave that I never knew existed until I started watching Worlds Collide.
Yep, but more importantly, he did find a Valiant knife in that chest, so that's one of the big ticket items our runners will be looking for. For those of you who are new to watching Final Fantasy VI, first of all, welcome, and second of all, Valiant knife is one of the best weapons in the game that you don't hear about much from your vanilla playthrough. And the reason why that ends up being because you can, what it does, it partially ignores the damage calculation, and part of its damage ends up being based on the amount of missing HP on your party member. So you can just do tons of damage if you don't bother healing your party. I also noticed Mr. Entity picking up a Genji glove in that cave as well, so that thorough looting really paying off there.
Good stuff there for sure. Something I always find interesting about FF6 is how the top tier items are just so far above the rest of the items in the game. I mean, the real, S tier weapons and armors, your Illuminas, your Minervas are just totally game changing. And it's always exciting to see where they find them, what they find, and how the runners adjust their strategies based on the loot.
Yeah, and you got to be happy with this early start so far. You have an Experience Egg, you got a Genji Glove, you've got an Aura Lance, a Valiant Knife, so you're already starting out good on offense. Aura Lance especially good if they can find Dragoon Boots somewhere. So they've got to be feeling pretty good about where they are once they get through these sealed gate NPCs and like that, and I think you'll see people tackling checks pretty soon. What's going to be interesting to me is in this seed where we have the party average level scaling, so none of the boss encounters will scale until they start gaining levels. It's set to the average level, which in this case is level 3. Will anyone actually take and level too much early on, or will they all try and take some of these bosses down at that level 3 when they might be a little bit less threatening? Because to me, I actually find a lot of things in this game are a lot more threatening at low levels than they are at high levels, and I would kind of want to be tempted to get some of that experience out of the way a bit quickly once I had those items going.
For sure. It'll be interesting to see what the sweet spot is for each runner in terms of what they want their levels to be, because, again, as you mentioned, if the bosses don't give experience, they'll all be at the level you want them to be, basically, depending on how you choose to grind. I see Mr. Entity fighting a grenade in the middle of the Imperial base. How did that happen? Is that another Y NPC remove thing?
I don't believe so, because I did see, I want to say it was Jax removed an NPC there. I think he actually took that fight on purpose, because if you use that, if you talk to one of the NPCs, they will just boot you out right afterwards. So in this case where you're going to have to do some damage, I mean, I guess in this case you might have accidentally talked to an NPC, but I could see someone sort of taking one encounter there and using that to just boost through the rest and sort of clip that little bit of travel time out as well.
Fair enough.
So we are seeing Shote here at the spot there with Stop, Quick, and Quake. Quick and Quake I mean, quick is pretty obvious for how good it is if you've played vanilla. If you have not, it basically lets you act twice. So it can be really strong, but it is very expensive. But the interesting one to me there beyond that is stop. Because if you think of threatening bosses in this game, one of the ones that comes to mind is Poltergeist. And now that they have that stop, if they can get that early on, he's vulnerable to stop. So that does take one of the more threatening bosses out of the pool if they go ahead and get that stop onto a character fairly early.
For sure, knowing the particular quirks of some of the bosses and what statuses they may not be immune to is something I always am excited to see, and something definitely these runners will try to keep in mind. I'm just enjoying watching the runners just poof these NPCs out of existence as they run through them.
Yep, we haven't seen any special clips with it yet, unfortunately. None of the interesting little things you can do around it, but I expect we will at some point in time if the runners know about it. See some fun shenanigans around that. We do see Brianna has decided to go for some of these Colosseum checks, and in the most recent version, in 0.9, we added the ability to see what the reward is for certain items at the Coliseum, and you can set it to however many different rewards you want to be able to see. I don't quite remember what it is on the flags in this one, but it's pretty small. But in this case, she did find that you can trade a buckler for a Genji shield if you can get through that fight there, and that's a pretty good trade.
That is a solid upgrade. Mildane in Sen, seeing fixed dice for sale, decides to walk away.
Yeah, and some runners are just not fans of the fixed dice, but I think in this case it's a bit more, it's very expensive. I'll come back later. Fixed dice can be really, really strong, but the problem with them is their animation is incredibly slow. So there's a sort of debate over, is having a fixed dice without like an offering or something to increase the damage to absurd levels per turn worth it if I'm going to be sitting through that dice roll repeatedly? And with an Aura Lance and possibly a Valiant Knife, I gotta be thinking that dice is not looking that appealing to me right now.
Fair enough, though it will take a few levels to get that Valiant Knife online, which again goes back to the how will these runners level up? So far doing some non-combat checks. Looks like Mildane diving into the Phoenix Cave, another check with no combat. I like your idea of hitting up the river, but we'll see what these runners choose to do.
I've got to expect that will be routed in at some point. I can see a very, very solid argument for not taking combat early on as well. In particular, if you're hoping for Espers with strong stat boosts and to take advantage of it. It's kind of this question of, will early levels power me through these distort and normalize bosses checks fast enough to make it worthwhile leveling early? And to me, I think I would probably still take the levels, but I can definitely see why our runners are not doing that yet.
Meanwhile, Mildane finding a second Aura Lance in a relatively uncommon to check chest, the very first chest in the Phoenix Cave that you have to go down to the basement and then back up to check.
And what's interesting to me is that he is doing the sort of vanilla Phoenix Cave where you lower the spikes and go through there, and I'm wondering if he's planning on trying to solo a dragon, but he did find Dragoon Boots there with that Aura Lance, so that's a huge early pickup for him.
Love to see a Dragoon build come together. We're just one dragon horn away from the dream. But you're right, we do have one dragon required for this seed, and dragons are not mixed in with other bosses. So what you see is what you get, more or less, depending on the color of the dragon. And taking on a dragon at level 3 would be something to see.
It's especially doable with that Aura Lance and Dragoon Boots combo. The question on my mind is whether or not he's going to, and I think the reason why that's interesting to me in this case is because these dragons also, to my knowledge, do not grant experience because they do count as bosses. There's sort of no real upside to taking it here, And I also wouldn't be surprised if he just goes through, takes the free check, and then goes and does like the Earth Dragon spot at the Opera House later, or maybe hopes he finds a Cyan, or possibly uses the flag to break his way into Mount Zozo and goes from there.
For sure. Mr. Entity seems like choosing to go without the Moogle charm, just leveling up the vanilla way with some random encounters.
And that does seem like a pretty good strategy with this particular setup. I mean, if you're not going to get XP from bosses, you're gonna be walking anyways. You might as well get the experience on the way. The only downside is, as we mentioned a couple minutes ago, if you're waiting on the stat bonuses from Espers, you're losing out on those every encounter you take. And you are also making those bosses stronger, which tells me that he thinks he can take care of any boss he has right now with that equipment. And I'm kind of tempted to agree.
Definitely a strong start gear-wise for this seed. Will be exciting to see when some of these runners choose to take on some bosses. I think Mr. Entity's up to level 9-ish, which is decent for the first few boss checks.
Yeah, and I'm kind of surprised because you gotta feel like you can get through these early bosses just with Blowfish while they're at a low level. But, that's a thing. Apparently, Mildane, according to one of our trackers, Grimwolf in chat, attempted to remove the dragon and swapped parties by mistake. So that's an interesting moment. Does find a Celes at the end of this check, though.
Yes, indeed, a Celes with Sword Tech, which I have become a big fan of the more I play Worlds Collide. It's not the most exciting skill in a vanilla game. It takes forever to charge, and Cyan is not the world's most exciting character, but in Worlds Collide, the time to charge Sword Tech is sped up, and it can really do some very impressive damage. So a Sword Tech Celes I would add to my party and keep for the rest of the game.
And additionally, if they can either unlock Cyan's Dream, which immediately upon completion unlocks every Sword Tech on whoever has Sword Tech, or if they can get that Celes leveled up high enough, they will be able to use that Celes' Cleave ability, which is the 8th level of Sword Tech, to instantly kill anything that is not immune to instant death, which could A, help very strongly with any level grind they might do, and B, is extremely helpful on the final boss where you have 2 targets, one on each of the first 2 tiers that are not immune to instant death.
That is very true. Like I said, Sword Tech, I think a real top tier ability. Always happy to see it.
Yep. Unfortunately, on Brianna's side, she chose to take some random encounters and does run into these level 40, level 30 magic enemies. And the problem with that is none of these enemies give experience. They only give magic points. So this is going to end up being a, unfortunately, not very helpful fight to have gotten at this point. But, it's not the worst in the world either to try and find what you can. And at this point in time, might as well kill it instead of running away.
That is true. I wonder if we'll see the runners sort of shopping around for random encounters, seeing if they find a good area or just a good setup of monsters that they can really grind on.
I think it depends on what their plan is and strategy is for getting these levels, because to me, I would wait until the last possible moment to do a straight up grind if I was going to do a straight up grind. But speaking of things that are interesting to find, Mildane just found Gogo in that cell in South Figaro, choosing not to take him, but Gogo can be a very, very useful character if he's given the right opportunities.
Of course, the mime with the most. He can equip, or they can equip any command in the game, and they also come with, in my opinion, and I think I'm not alone with this, the worst check in the game.
I'm always very, very pleased to find someone else who absolutely despises going down into Zone Eater, and unfortunately, to our knowledge, you cannot remove those enemies. But what's interesting to me is in this fight, in this flag set where you don't have many great offensive abilities, if you find rods, which I believe are possible to find in shops in these flags, I cannot remember off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure that they ended up, at least some sort of breakable ended up being turned on. Or just find one in a chest, you can have that go-go just loop mimicking that rod over and over again and get basically infinite uses out of it as long as no one else takes any actions.
Meanwhile, we see Mr. Entity taking on a boss, and what a boss it is, the Goddess statue. And out comes the first love token. Locke is now sworn to protect his goddess. Not the most difficult boss in the game, but a extremely annoying boss, and one that can just out of nowhere flatten your party.
This is an extremely dangerous boss to find early on when you don't have other ways of dealing damage aside from the attacks that Mr. Entity has at the moment. He's basically going to be relying on that Mog and these couple rods that he has. And then again, one of them is a Pearl Rod, and that's not going to help him against Goddess. So he's kind of just got to hope this Blowfish takes Goddess down before that Mog falls over at this point.
The Mog carry, let's see it. It's going to be another Blowfish.
If this does not work out, this is going to be a huge, huge problem because he spent a lot of time doing damage. Snowball does fix damage, so Mog now down to 8 HP. Another Blowfish coming out, and not quite enough. Overcast, something you want to see here in this case because you're not going to last until that Doom Timer runs out, so you're kind of just hoping for the best here.
Another Blowfish. Osmo's attack is fine.
This Goddess is doing everything but destroying this Mog at 8 HP, and he might actually pull this off.
This is exciting. Down to 4.
Yep, another percent damage ability. Good to see. So 4 HP, another Blowfish coming out. Still not down yet, though.
Another MP attack is fine. Chipping away, 1,000 at a time. There it is! Mog the winner.
That is huge to have gotten done there because that was a real terrifying moment. But I do want to point out a couple things. First of all, Jex taking this Opera House check, which has the random encounters, so going to do that ahead of time, get some. But Mildane, down in the bottom of the Zone Eater, the, as we mentioned, worst check, found an Illumina.
Well, you can't complain about that. The best sword in the game by a pretty fair margin.
Illumina, the best offensive and defensive item in the game, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on what side you're on. We're going to see what's at the bottom of this check, and it looks like a realm, so that is Mildane's character requirement already completed.
That is true. 6 characters down, 2 Espers. And looks like a pretty solid party. A realm with Morph. Morph, a skill that is easy to forget about. Not something you use every fight, but if you pull it out for a particular boss battle, you can really supercharge the damage you do, and turn a difficult situation into a winnable situation very easily.
Yeah, and if you're in a situation like this where you're probably going to be going into Kefka's tower under-leveled, that gives you a lot of flexibility on where to use that. You could use it early on and use that to help get through the dangerous bosses that will be in your path, or you could just save it for the Kefka fight, use it to get through one of the tiers that you think you're going to have a problem with. So that's sort of a, toggleable button that says, okay, I want to end this quickly, as we do see Mildane removing Terra from the airship there with the Y remove button.
The next seed I play will have this flag. I love it.
It's extremely useful. And I want to give a quick shout out, of course, to Atmatech, the creator of Worlds Collide, for putting this in because it has been very interesting to see everyone trying to figure out where they can and can't use that to save the tiniest bits of time. We are seeing, however, Brianna has found a Genji glove and 2 fixed dice, and it looks like that's going to be her strategy as she's equipped those to her Mog.
Fixed dice, I think not the most fashionable weapon in the Worlds Collide community. I think it gets a little undue hate its way. But yeah, a Genji glove fixed dice will, if you don't mind the animation, it will take you through basically the entire game.
The only problem I can foresee with that fixed dice is that, much like Valiant Knife takes quite a while to come online because you need that HP buildup, fixed dice scales very hard off of levels. And if you're going to be running through most of the seed at around level 3, that fixed dice is not actually going to do all that much damage because it does have a level multiplier in its damage formula.
That is a very good point. Meanwhile, I saw Mr. Entity found a pug fight, ran away from that, would much rather take on these toe cutters that will give some solid experience.
One thing that's being pointed out on Brianna's side by Franklin, one of our trackers tonight, is that she is leaving that Terra on the floor. And what that will do is that will keep the enemy levels lower because that party average level enemy scaling. So that could be a very, very smart usage of sort of exploiting how these seeds will scale up on the basis of that flag if she ends up just leaving that Terra down for the rest of the seed and doing the 3 character strats through the rest of it once she gets a 4th character to add to her party.
For sure. These are the things you need to think about when doing party average level scaling. That's the down on Jevrox, who is starring in the opera in this seed.
And while Jex was up there, he basically took every rat encounter he could to get those levels, so really pumping that in right now, and does find Dottaluma, which is one of those deceptively tanky bosses in Distort and Normalize Stats flag. This could take a bit longer than you would expect, and if this Dottaluma flag takes a bit longer than you expect, it can actually do some kind of dangerous things later on.
Mildane deleting the boss on top of Zozo. There's that NPC remove flag again.
Yeah, I mean, that's why Dottaluma had to go star in an opera. He couldn't be on top of Zozo anymore. Does find the Ifrit Magicite up there. Going to be interesting to see if we can read what's on there. It is Cure 3, so that's a pretty good find. Means that his healing is taken care of for the rest of the seed as he does warp out. And as soon as he gets that, now he doesn't have to worry about, okay, how am I going to get through these if these fights are more dangerous than I expect?
For sure. All of these runners making very good use of the Rage command. You see Mog doing a lot of work on Jex's screen and Mr. Entity's. Knowledge of the Rages, particularly what to look for and how to use them, is a big skill to have if you want to really kind of level up your Worlds Collide runs.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's very interesting to me as the community has sort of expressed interest in running lower and lower character requirements, is that knowledge is going to matter a lot more than it used to, because you have to be able to make use of every character that you get, sans maybe 1 or 2. So him knowing how to use those rages appropriately, and anyone else knowing how to use the rages appropriately, very, very important now when they're likely to not find very many characters in the seed, or at least not be looking for them.
Speaking of characters, Jex finding a Strago with Capture at the end of the Opera House. Probably a character to leave on the bench.
Yeah, I can't think of many combinations that would be much more of an instant no thank you for me than the Strago with Capture, but I'm sure they exist. Maybe like no, I think even Umaro I get more use out of than Strago with Capture in most cases. Brianna, however, looking like she's out for revenge on this tentacle fight.
Yes, indeed. Tentacle, particularly with the normalized and distorted boss stats, no joke. These are some beefy tentacles coming out of the ground of this cave in Narsh. Hopefully these dice are friendly and cut through them.
I didn't see what you had to wager for it, but I did just see on Mildane's side something very, very exciting if there's a reliable way of getting it. There are Valiant knives that you can earn in that Coliseum.
Oh my.
I think what we're finding recently is if you give the ability to use Coliseum and see what it is, it's actually extremely good to the point that it's kind of concerning. And this has got to be one of those kind of concerning, powerful moments here. Mildane now going to go up to this Welk spot as Jex also entering the same fight. So we're about to see 3 different tentacle fights, and then there's a Funbaba up on the end of a river here.
The sync up. And we'll get to see some slightly different strategies for dealing with these tentacles, as well as Mr. Entity just chewing through this Funbaba.
Yep, and it's worth keeping in mind that that boss is going to be much stronger for him than it is for, say, Mildane's side on this tentacle fight, where he has not taken any of these fights basically at all. So he's still taking this at very low level and honestly not very threatening to him.
That is a very good point. Really a great way to highlight how the progression of these bosses changes with party level. Mildane taking a reset there.
That is quite interesting. Brianna did get through that, did see it was an Esper, I believe. Now up here at this Kefka Narsh check, and it looks like she's going to go for it, which I kind of like, because no one else has, and I feel with 3 character starts, that Kefka Narsh check looks pretty appealing a lot of the time. Or just going to go up here to Lone Wolf first, at least.
Yeah, take the freebie before the boss fight, especially when there's no scaling on progression. I've always had a soft spot for Setzer, so I hope she takes this fight and adds a new character to the mix.
Yep, and up on Mr. Entity's side, did get through that river check, and unfortunately only found a cat hood for it, which hats are just generally not great in this game, honestly.
If you have to pick a hat, it's one to pick, but you are correct. They are not the game-breaking pieces of equipment that some of the weapons or armor can be.
Yeah, the only real huge benefit to me out of Cat Hood in this particular case is you've got it early on. You can pop it on someone, and if you're going to do a level grind later, that's very useful because one, I believe, if I'm remembering correct, and this is again one of those things I might be thinking of a different Final Fantasy game, but I believe Cat Hood forces random encounters to drop their maximum possible gold on death. So you can get quite a bit of an advantage out of that if you find something very good for sale, like rods or something, and just buy a bunch of those, use that to blast through, maybe even use that to speed up your level grind if you're doing that later, and just get through it as quickly as you can.
That is very true. I believe they do maximize the possible gold that you can receive from a battle, so good way to level up your wallet over the course of the game.
We've seen a lot of interesting things for sale. Mildane has found a gem box for sale, and I believe that's Mobley's. I've
Mm-hmm.
also seen an economizer for sale somewhere. So if you wanted to go for the big budget, early on spam high level spells with X magic combination to carry you through most of the seed, you could do that. Then just replace the economizer later with something that increases damage once MP is no longer a concern.
For sure. One of those sort of classic FF6 combos that let you drop two big magic spells a turn for 2 mana, 2 MP rather. Hard to say no to that.
Vanilla, I believe, I can't remember if it's 3 or 5 ultimas you can get off for like 6 MP if you per turn with economizer and gem box or something crazy like that. Obviously, in this randomizer, we tend to run with ultima disabled because it is such a strong spell that it basically warps everything you do in the entire seed around it. But in vanilla, economizer, gem box, you're set for the entire game. There's nothing that can concern you from that point onwards.
Meanwhile, Brianna running into a, I guess, French vanilla Rider in the Kefka at Narsh battle. Rider, traditionally the last enemy running back and forth in front of Kefka, and this time is just one of the troops.
Yeah, and she's been taking quite a few of these fights, using that Kefka at Narsh to grind up a little bit, but only grinding up 2 of her party members, so it's not going to scale up that seed quite as hard. Is going to be sort of stuck in this little bit of a loop that you can get in by running into that spot, and we'll get through it eventually, but this is going to be a good speedy level grind for her if she wants to just sit here for a while. Mog does go down though, so this is looking a little bit risky.
Yeah, you can get caught by these enemies sometimes in the Narsh battle. When you kill them, they just reappear where they started, and if you're right near their spawn points, you just run into them all over again. Now, like... Mr. Entity taking on the tentacle battle that everyone else has already run through, but sorry, you were saying?
Jex, I was about to note that Jex is taking this Kefka at Narsh that Brianna's taking, so we're sort of on the same page here, just a little bit different on it. Not attempting to delete the Setzer at the back of the check here, which is a little bit disappointing, but it does look like Brianna is through all of these battles now, is about to hit this boss, so we're about to see what it ends up being.
And it is a Dullahan. Which fairly manageable, I would think, especially those good dice rolls, or at least a good dice roll. Good way to start this battle.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't going to threaten too much. Another boss that you can't really use that Pearl Rod on is kind of annoying, because if you want to use that early on to just blast through a boss check when you might be a little bit under-leveled through it, now would be about the time, and yeah, you can't use Pearl against Dullahan, just doesn't work, so she's through it easily anyways, though, and honestly, she had a little bit of a slow start compared to a couple of our other runners, but she's making up ground pretty quick now.
If I had to pick one boss who you would think would be weak to Pearl, it would be the skeleton who lives in a tomb and drives a skeleton chariot. But no, he loves Pearl.
Yep, he is the Holy Skeleton Man of Holy Land. That's why he has the level 1 Pearl ability and all that. That's why he knows healing magic. Apparently just the ghost of the Pope or something like that, the Chariot Pope. But if you're looking for an annoying boss, speaking of things that can throw you a problem, Mildane has found Chotternook, which is kind of a slow fight, but does get that Illumina proc, so that'll definitely speed that up quite a bit.
Chotternook, one of those bosses that you have to wait for, which is always so frustrating, especially if you're in, say, a weekly community race. But no problem for Mildane, who takes the haunted painting down pretty quickly.
Yeah, between that Rod from Realm and that Illumina proc from Locke, For those who don't know, um, who might be coming from either another community or just didn't know this from vanilla or otherwise, Illumina does not just proc with casting Pearl. Illumina also has guaranteed crits, and that Pearl also crits. So that is a huge amount of damage. So getting that 2000 at like level 6, I mean, think about that. If in vanilla you swung a sword and it did 2000 damage, that's going to basically one-shot every boss from here to Zozo half the time.
Speaking of Zozo, that was so satisfying. If you saw on Brianna's screen, just deleting those NPCs in the single file line, that alone is worth the Y NPC remove flag right there.
Yep, this flag is everything that I have wanted for so long. Every time I've gotten stuck behind one of these NPCs, and I can't wait until I actually get the chance to try it out myself. Mildane did get through that fight pretty easily, did end up picking the Alexander summon for it. Mr. Entity now on his way up through the mountain, looking like he's going to at very least take Lone Wolf, if not take the Kefka at Narsh spot. And Jex, in that Dullahan fight, not really posing that much of a problem, as his Celos is already to the point where she has at least one of her incredibly good sword tech abilities in that Quadra Slam.
And Zozo Boss goes poof. Remove that NPC.
You know, you love to have the occasional free boss. I wonder if you can remove that Magicite and like soft block yourself out of giving that Ifrit. These are things I should not test, but I will need to test when I get the chance, and no one's going to test it during a race. But does manage to pick up that reward, now up to 4-4, which, I mean, if you're just counting objectives, she's in a very close third place right now.
Very true. I'm wondering now if you can delete the statues at the top of Kefka's tower.
Oh, that could be a potentially interesting thing. I bet there are people who know that who will let us know in a couple moments here. Well, I heard you wanted another Aura Lance from that Setzer check here at Collingen, because you got one.
It's Naku in chat making a very good point. Probably don't want to delete Sid if you're deep in the Magitech factory. That could mess with some of the event flags down there.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to deprive yourself of anything with this flag, do not make it the extremely realistic minecart ride at the end of Magitech, because that's just criminal at this point.
It's the Mode 7 graphics.
Honestly, it is the most realistic thing I've ever seen, and anyone telling you otherwise has clearly never been on a minecart hurtling through a factory before. Now, what's interesting to me is that if you look at just the numbers, Mr. Entity is looking a bit behind. But if you look at like the number of checks done, what's ended up happening there is a few of the things that he's done, like that river check that he devoted a lot of time to, just didn't pay off. And in the end, he'll catch that back up at this point, because he's really only gone be railroaded down these same paths everyone else has taken now.
That is a good point. Surprised we've only seen one river check. Ooh, Locke getting petrified in this this holy loving skeleton fight. Who is maybe on fire, maybe covered in flammable purple foam? We're not sure. We just know that Dullahan set Pearl spell.
I like to think that he's not actually on fire, but it's like when you have a car and you paint flames on it to make it look like it's going faster. Those are just all prop flames that he's attached to his skeleton horse to make it look like his chariot is moving faster than it actually is.
That's definitely what it is.
And as in chat, we've seen that command. Now is also a good time to mention, while we're sort of getting through these fights and a bit of walking, that now is a very good time to follow our runners, Mr. Entity, Mildane, Jexbrock, and Brianna Fofana on Twitch, as well as our Restream team. I again want to give a quick shout out and thanks to our Restreamer Asherin, as well as our trackers Grimwolf and Franklin, both of whom are doing a very amazing job at keeping us up to date with this, because quite frankly, this is moving a bit quicker than I'm used to.
Definitely shout out to the Restream team. They're doing the hard work of making this happen, and there is a lot happening as we see a Katana Soul on Brianna's screen. So what's better than Fixed Dice Genji Glove is Fixed Dice Genji Glove offering, if, again, you're into the Fixed Dice.
Or even if you want to do Valiant Knife Genji Glove offering too. There's been a couple of Valiant Knives in the pool. Katana Soul, I feel like with what we've seen through so far through all of these item checks, I feel like Katana Soul is the monster in a box you're looking for on this one. Sure, Minervas are great if you can get them to drop from the Pug's chest, but Katana Soul is going to be your offense for the rest of the seed, basically taken care of, especially on Brianna's side where she's running that Genji Glove Fixed Dice Smog.
Absolutely. Offering, of course, especially effective with the Valiant Knife because, as you mentioned earlier, it does run a sort of different damage formula for most weapons. The offering, for those who may not know, allows you to attack 4 times, sort of the X-Fight ability from other Final Fantasy games, but the attacks do half damage. Unless you use, say, the Fixed Dice or Valiant Knife that run off of different damage formulas, and then it's just a pure bonus.
Yeah, I feel like every game where it's ever appeared, X-Fight is consistently, like, alongside Mix, basically the most broken ability in any game it appears in, except in this one where they almost figured it out, but just forgot about the 2 items that deal damage that ignores the damage calculation, that don't get affected by that 50% off. So, you know, unfortunate. They almost had it.
Trying to keep an eye on party levels while we see some inventory going. Looks like Brianna's averaging around 14, Jex 23-ish. So with all the bosses scaling off of party level, we'll see how these boss clears go as Brianna takes on, or rather decides not to take on, Air Force.
Well, I can't say I blame her. That Air Force is not necessarily the most appealing thing. I did not catch what the reward was, but I think it might have been an item too, in which case, don't bother. No reason to. Might as well just leave and go spend your time elsewhere. You got that offering, it does not matter to you anymore.
Absolutely. Mildane looked like also averaging around 14 as they're about to take on, who was it? Oh, Daddy Llama, of course.
Now, one thing I do want to note, for those of you following along as we get into the Stadaluma fight, and there's just sort of a bit of walking going on elsewhere, that we do, coming up starting tomorrow evening, last I knew, this might change slightly just due to how some things have worked out, have our upcoming tournament very soon. The qualifying race is going on this weekend for our Final Fantasy VI Worlds Collide Coliseum event. And if you're enjoying this race so far, 3 of our 4 runners, and I believe 4 of the 5 of us on the Restream team are all signed up for that event as well. So if you enjoy this race, be sure to look out for that very, very soon. Very exciting, going to be a bracket style 1v1 competition to the very finish.
Should be a good time. We have I think some very good racers, some more average racers like myself. But yeah, if you enjoy what you see in this Final Fantasy VI Worlds Collide weekly community race, please check out the Final Fantasy VI Worlds Collide Twitch channel, which is will be airing the Coliseum and There's all your Worlds Collide needs.
Yep, and I can
Man,
say from
I
watching
just
this
like that
race so
NPC remove.
I do not want to be matched up against any of these runners. So everyone doing a very, very good job so far. Did notice, as is pointed out in chat, that Jex did not decide to just remove the Shiva, did end up taking this fight against Senor Behemoth here at Magitech 1. So here's the question for me, is if you remove Shiva there, do you miss the reward as well, or does her being removed from the screen give you the reward? Because I wouldn't be surprised if it's sort of messed up in that way. No, you can come back after. Okay.
The intricacies and complex interactions of why NPC remove are something I am very much looking forward to experimenting with on my own time. Probably right after this stream.
Yep, and also speaking of after this stream, another thing going on this weekend that is worth noting is one of our community members, Fraggle, is running a charity marathon today as well that we will be sending you all over to after this race. So make sure you give him your love and a notice on that too, running for the Marina Doglish organization, which is a organization over in England that helps with families who are dealing with cancer in their family and helping them through that tough time. So very good of him spending that time, and make sure you head over there and give him a follow as well. Donate if you can, help out. Very good.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Jex running into Rex. Rex Soul, that is. Another fairly annoying boss, but one he should be equipped to handle, particularly with that Rage Mog, who has been doing work for all the runners throughout this entire seed.
Yeah, and that is a very scary, not very scary boss, but to me, the second most annoying boss in the game after the piranhas, because I only ever seem to run into it when I found an offering and I'm running like offering Genji Glove fixed dice, and then I have to sit there as all 8 of those somehow manage to all hit Soul Savers, rolling triple ones for the next 20 minutes, it feels like. In this case, using mostly like enemy party wide damage, so he's gonna have to wait through that despawn and respawn animation for those Soul Savers each time.
Definitely a boss that can suck up your time.
And speaking of things that can suck up a bit of your time, Brianna did end up trying to delete the dragon, which did not work. And unfortunately, yeah, you do have to try, and Dirt Dragon is Dirt Dragon and will basically always be a pain. However, it does look like she's going to intentionally go for it now, adjusting her party to have an ice shield on there, having died to the immediate elf fire. But now it's going to be magnitude 8, and I don't think there's a way around that.
That's not what you want to see.
For those of you in the audience who are not familiar with this randomizer, one of the flags that we have in the randomizer is the ability to change what abilities bosses have. And there's 2 different settings to it. There's Scale Element, which is the more common of the 2, not what we're running today. Today we're running Scaled Random. And what that is doing is that is giving that Dirt Dragon a random ability from a certain tier of abilities that it can possibly pull off at that point. So what she'd done there was tried to equip the Ice Shield for the fire resistance and take care of that way around. Unfortunately, that time, instead of using Elf Fire first, it used Magnitude 8 first, wiped her out, and now she's just going to go ahead for the check.
Meanwhile, Mr. Entity finding a ghost train flying through the skies of the world of Ruin, and remembers that we have the No Undead flag off for this seed, and removes that undead boss with a single Revivify, earning the Stray Mega Site.
Unfortunately, the Sky Train no longer running today. But at that 4-4, 5-4 actually point right now, definitely making up some of that ground that he lost a bit earlier with that time spent on the river that didn't pay off. Sleep and Float, though, not the best option, but Magic Power +2 is basically the best bonus you can get on an Esper, in my opinion, at least, aside from maybe HP 100 with all the Valiant Knives we've seen. So he's got to be extremely happy with that pickup.
For sure. Also, the highest party level by a pretty significant margin looked like mid-30s on average.
Yeah, and he's done a very, very good job at that. Unfortunately, speaking of checks that are going to end up being a waste of time just because of not paying off, he is entering that Daryl's Tomb, which Brianna did walk into and find the red cap that she decided she didn't want, which I can't really blame her for. As we mentioned earlier, hats in this game are just not great in general, and 25% bonus health is not great. But we are seeing Brianna has not noticed that no undead flag is off and is choosing to fight the Ghost Train normally, which I think is probably going to be fine. It's not too threatening, just will take a bit longer.
As long as the evil toot isn't too evil, which it is not.
It's always bothered me that whenever they've updated this Phantom Train boss for later, they've retranslated it as like Diabolic Whistle, and that is nowhere near as good as Evil Toot. Really, we need to get Evil Toot back as the name of that ability.
I'm sure I'm not alone in saying that some of the Woolseyisms in this game are really what make the charm of the game.
Question for me on Mr. Entity's side, does he take this monster in a box? I feel like he will, and I feel like he's going to be very happy finding that Katana Soul right now.
Will definitely be happy with what he sees as Jex is finishing up the realistic Mode 7 minecart trip with a battle with Ultros.
And I am not sure which Ultros that is, because I do not have sound on Jex's side. Normally you can tell based off of the sprite, but that could be Ultros 2 or 3 because you can't have a pincer on the minecart. So that's an interesting question.
I think it was 3, but it's gone now.
Unfortunately, a problem Brianna is having right now is that she is proccing instant death on this Ghost Train, and it's reviving the Ghost Train constantly.
Oh, with that berserk lock, so they have to put him down if you want to finish off this battle. As Jex runs into an Inferno, as a tower boss can be a bit tricky. We'll see how he handles it.
Yeah, and part of the scary thing with Inferno, especially when you're at a low level with the Normalize and Distort flag on, is if all 3 parts of Inferno are up, then he can use his Delta Hit ability and petrify one of your party members. And if you don't have a supply of softs or remedies at that point, then you could be in deep trouble if you can't take those arms out quickly.
Absolutely. Now, and I have a question for you, and perhaps for chat as well. What are the ranged weapons in this game? I mean, the Hawkeyes, the snipers, the wing edges. They're not bows, but they are ranged weapons. Are they all boomerangs, or what are they? Do you have any idea? I've always wondered.
I don't know off the top of my head. I think that some of them are intended to be boomerangs. I'm pretty sure the sniper is intended to be some sort of bow or gun, but it's kind of hard to tell. But boomerangs does sound right. So let's go with boomerangs and assume it's right, no matter whether it's right or not.
Fair enough. Boomerangs it is.
You heard it here first. We have determined whether or not they actually are boomerangs, and they are indeed boomerangs. And Mildane did find that Ultros 4 fight up at the Tritalk spot, going for that 7th Esper. Very smart game knowledge there, knowing that that has to be either an Esper or an item, and unfortunately it's a Snow Muffler. Not the best prize, but not a bad one by any stretch of the imagination. Meanwhile, Brianna has gotten through that rough Phantom Train fight. Very good play, obviously, getting through that fight the way she did.
Yes, indeed. We now find ourselves 1 hour into this race, and at the 1 hour mark, Mildane probably has the most checks down, or rather, most objectives, with 7 of the 6 required characters, 6 of the 7 required Espers. Jex also with 7 characters and 5 Espers. Brianna with 5 and 5. Mr. Entity with 4 and 5.
Yeah, Mr. Entity has unfortunately spent a lot of time on checks that have not paid off, and now has spent a lot of time on this Katana Soul fight. Does take it down. Meanwhile, Mildane is going to take this dragon fight for Skull Dragon for his 1 required dragon on that seed, and he's going to be 1 Esper away from go mode. So here's the question. Would you rather be Mr. Entity, that 1 dragon, 2 characters, 2 Espers away, but your levels are pretty much set for the tower? Or would you rather be over on Mildane's side where you're 1 Esper away, but you do not have experience yet?
It is a tricky question. One thing in Mildane's favor is they did just take down a dragon, so that's the dragon requirement done. And diving into Kefka's Tower at level 14 is a brave undertaking. But again, obviously the boss level scaled to the party, except I'll double check the flags, but I believe the final battle is not scaled.
You are correct. It is not at all scaled, so that's sort of like an added objective almost to the seed. Is, you have our usual get X number of Espers, get X number of characters. In this case, get 1 dragon. Sometimes you don't have to get dragons. Sometimes you have to get all the dragons and they're shuffled into the bosses, and it's a miserable time. But a sort of soft 4th objective into that is then, in this case, get your levels, because unless you are absolutely perfect and have about 30 different tricks up your sleeve, you're not getting through that tower at level 14. It's just not happening.
That is true. And Mr. Entity now taking on this Air Force fight. Doing the right thing with Bolt Magic. Unsurprisingly, the giant machine is weak to Bolt. So, casting Flare. That's no fun.
I'm kind of curious as to why he's taking this fight for the red cap. Obviously, he has a plan behind that, but I'll be interested to find out what his thought process was behind taking this fight at that point. If he just thinks, that red cap's going to does reset out now, so maybe deciding, yeah, it's not worth it anymore. All right, the next thing up has Mildane checked, and yes, he has noticed no undead flags and does drop the Revivify that will knock out this train in the sky.
Goodbye, Skytrain. Meanwhile, Mr. Entity, he wants another go at the Air Force.
I think that red cap does have a good amount of synergy with Valiant Knife at very least. It's something that you can either equip permanently and have that extra bit of an HP pool, or you can equip it temporarily and then remove it afterwards, that you're already starting that little bit below. Sort of like you take it off, then put it back on, it bumps up your max HP, but not your current HP, so you have a little bit of a head start on that Valiant Knife. So I can see where he might want that red cap on the basis of that, but Mildane has found Esper number 7, What now?
That is the question. Mildane in go mode can take on Kefka's Tower at any time, but Kefka and that final battle are going to hit way too hard for a level 14 party. So what is the play here? How are we going to get some levels out of this party?
I don't know. It's a big question of when and where and how and why. And honestly, there's almost a question in my brain too of, do you try and do a really sneaky play where you keep it at level 14 and then you go and do all the bosses, run back out, then do your grind? But it looks like he's going to go to the river and possibly just loop the river here.
Wow, using the OG 1990s Nintendo Power Strats, just infinite loops on the river.
Yep, yesterday was Final Fantasy VI's 27th anniversary, meaning that this is the 27th anniversary of people running loops around this river, and we're about to celebrate it with one of them. So that's quite exciting, and I think that he's going to be happy with the enemy spread here, because I believe there's some pretty high XP enemies on this river.
There were some behemoths and vectors, which are Kefka Tower enemies. Definitely lots of XP in them, and those toe cutters are pretty easy to take down. I hope we see 27 loops for the 27th birthday of Final Fantasy VI.
That seems fitting, especially if you get 1 level per loop as well. You know, you get the 27 times around and you go. But I don't think he's going to need quite that much to get these. Meanwhile, Jex has decided to dive into one of the least popular, but probably quite popular today, checks, and is going into this burning house.
Another location with more or less required battles in it. You can theoretically skip all of them, but I don't think realistically it's possible. Good news, bad news. This Repo Man Were-Rat battle is definitely no danger, but not a lot of experience either.
And I gotta think at this point in time, if you're in Jex's position or anyone else's position, you're kind of like, I'm gonna take what I can get. It doesn't really matter if this is the easiest encounter or the hardest encounter. Is sort of trying to sneak around them at this point. Brianna's decided to take this Opera House as well as her chance through basically the same idea. Gonna be a bit happier with that. Meanwhile, at the end of this burning house, it looks like there's an Atma in there, which, yeah, I can see why the house is on fire now.
It is the five-legged monstrosity itself. I'm not wrong there, am I? That's definitely 5 legs, right?
I think maybe. I mean, that is a weird sprite when you really focus on the legs, isn't it? I'm not going to. I'm trying to figure this out myself.
It's a creature of absolute power. Apparently, absolute power means 5 legs.
That being said, Atma is not the scariest encounter with the scale random flag on. I mean, part of why he's scary in vanilla is his, I believe if I'm remembering correctly, he has the ability to cast Ultima, but he doesn't necessarily have that here, so he's kind of something you're happy to see in this particular occasion.
Definitely a straightforward boss. Can be a bit challenging, but I would say very, very fair, more or less. You know, hits hard, needs to be hit hard. That's what you want in a boss fight.
It's Mr. Entity's turn to check this Coliseum. Let's see if he has anything he wants. It was actually, I believe those... Oh, Mirasame for Valiant Knife. So not something you can repeat, but definitely something you're going to do in this case. Especially when you only have to fight a Dark Wind for it.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, a lock casting quick is his first turn, and then health is his second turn is not really what you want to see when you're trying to get through a Coliseum fight.
I know there's a lot of discussion in the in the Worlds Collide community about when you should go to the Coliseum. And I'm of the opinion that earlier is better just because your characters won't have magic and won't waste time casting magic.
To me, it's a two-pronged question. It's what are you looking for? Are you looking for something that you can repeat with consumables and get a few of and then go from there? Like, are you hoping that that tonic is an Illumina and you're going for it, in which case you go for it early? Or are you hoping for that one really strong item late to sort of bulk up your build when you're getting ready to face the tower, in which case you want to go as late as possible when you've done as much looting as possible, so you have as many chances for those good things. So like if you'd have gone here before getting that Murasame and then never came back, you would never have seen that Valiant Knife, and he would be having a bit of a different time here.
Well, that is a very good point. Like so many things in these Final Fantasy games, it's much deeper and weirder than you expect on the outset.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what I love about Worlds Collide as a randomizer, is it's a very, very wide randomizer. You can do a ton of different things and have them all be viable. So like you have the two different strategies there. I don't actually think one is better than the other in any case. So, you know, you could run one time, run one another time. It won't really make a massive difference in some ways. It just depends on whether or not that strategy is the right one for that seed.
Absolutely. We see hero rings for sale that Jex passes on in Sen, but he is now up to the required number of espers and characters. Just needs a dragon fight and a few levels to take down KT.
I'll be honest, I don't really know who's in the lead in this particular race right now. I mean, it's technically Mildane and Jex a bit ahead because Jex hasn't done the dragon yet, but Jex is in a little bit better of a position for going into Kefka's tower, and Mildane is having to take these other checks to get levels. Mr. Entity is basically already leveled up as much as he needs, can go get those characters quickly, then run to the auction house or wherever he wants to go to get a couple of quick espers out, and he might actually enter at roughly the same amount of time as it takes Mildane to level up. And then Brianna is in a bit of the same boat too. She's not doing too bad on levels herself. She could catch up that gap as well.
That's true. Meanwhile, chat calling out the auction play for was Brianna, trying to snag those last few espers at a discount.
I feel like this is a very, very good time to explain what she's going to be doing with this auction house here. And the way the auction house works in the World of Ruin, at very least here, is you go and you sell everything you can, and then you buy everything you can each time through. And you reset if it's an imp robot. So you're just kind of hoping that you get that esper each time. If not, you buy what it is to get it out of the item pool and then continue going through that way. So don't be surprised if you see her resetting a lot, going in, checking, coming back out, going in, checking, coming back out. We do know that there's at least one esper there because the NPC at the door has told us that there are glowing stones available. So this is a very interesting play. This should get her last two espers, but she's not getting experience while she's doing this, so I'm not actually sure it's the right play, although she does hit Ragnarok first try.
Meanwhile, Mildane choosing to customize their party with the shout out to the Leet River itself, saying, let's go around again.
I gotta feel like if Mildane was going to just grind on the river, why not just loop around the river? I mean, I guess it makes sense to go and at least finish the boss, and that way you're not, you know, hitting a difficult boss and then not able to get through it once it's scaled up, so you might as well take it at an earlier level. But I gotta feel like this might be a little bit slower of a way around here.
Will be a bit slower, but I mean, imagine taking 27 loops of the river and then running into say, a Magimaster that you can't kill and it having to do a restart. That would be painful.
And that is one of the things with this flag set that has not come up but could come up later. Magi Master has a flag in this randomizer, and what it is the Magi Master no Ultima flag, and what it does is it removes his death counter with Ultima. That flag is not on today. So he will counter with a spell on his death. However, since we have the scaled random flag on, that does mean that we don't know what it will be. It's not necessarily Ultima. So if they run into Magi Master and Kefka's Tower, that could throw them for a loop, because if you get the wrong spell there, that could knock you out right as you finish the fight and spend all that time on
it. That is a very good point.
And to answer the question from Ravelin in chat, one of our wonderful runners and Discord admins as well, and one of our frequent commentators, how has the YNPC flag gone? It's been pretty useful for the amount people have used it. You can see right now, if Mr. Entity would use it right there, he would be able to get out of there. Getting around the Zozo boss, like Naku said, has been the popular play of it. You just run up there, delete the boss, walk through, get your check. Unfortunately, that's about the only real YNPC shenanigans we've seen. We did start with Locke, so you didn't have the door deletion and Nourish or anything like that. So that flag has seen pretty good use in that situation, but you could use it even more if you had the right seed for it. Meanwhile, Brianna has found her 7th Esper at that auction house and now only needs her levels, just the same as Jex only needs his levels, just the same as Mildane only needs his levels. It is the level grind moment of the day where we really just need to know who's going to get through this and into the tower first, because it could still be any one of these 4 runners. This is very close right now.
Absolutely. Jex taking a ride on the Serpent Trench, so doing some leveling and maybe picking up another Esper or useful items along the way. As Brianna's running into, was this the Golden Dragon? Yes, it was. To take care of her required dragon.
It's not even a dragon, really. It's just a dinosaur, but we'll pretend it's a dragon for today. And this has been interesting because this one has a very good reward if you have the setup for it, and with all those Aura Lances you do, because this one has been giving our runners Dragon Horns. I don't think anyone has equipped one, but if you wanted to use that, Dragon Horn basically makes, if you have a character with Dragoon Boots or who naturally has jump, if you make them jump with a Dragon Horn equipped, they can land up to 3 times instead of just the once, or possibly 4. I can't remember off the top of my head. And
I believe it's 2 to 4 randomly.
Yeah, averages out to 3. Does a lot of damage, but I don't think she needs to worry about doing a lot of damage because she just kind of erased that dragon.
And to your point, we also see a golden dragon on Jex's screen, but this time it's a Brachiosaur. Ooh, and we have a confused dice user as well. That's painful.
This could be deadly depending on how much more of this fight goes on and whether or not that Mog gets another turn. Thankfully, it's not an offering fixed dice Mog, but Locke's going to go down as well, and Cella's in danger at this point. Is going to Warp Stone out of it, though.
Smart move by Jex.
Muddle can be a very, very non-threatening status effect, or it can land on your fixed dice user and your entire party is in for a nightmare of a day.
And if you play enough Worlds Collide Seas, it will happen to you, and it will be terrifying. It's definitely happened to me.
The real question is, how much is that going to hurt Jex in the non-standard way? because if he's doing Serpent Trench, he wants to maximize the XP out of this. That Brachiosaur was worth a lot of XP, and he just lost all of that XP by warp stoning out of the fight because he did not beat the enemy. So that's going to hurt quite a bit, and he might actually still have to do more grinding when that could have possibly even gotten him to where he needed to.
That's a good point. There are the number of fixed encounters in the Serpent Trench is fixed, so missing out on that chunk of experience just means this is a less fruitful trip for him.
You know, I really like what this flag set has done from a watching this perspective, because I don't know who's in the lead because of this level grind, and this moment of tension where we're wondering what's going to happen. Everything is sort of to play for here at this point. It's going to be an interesting time. It looks like Brianna is either setting up for a grind or might even be setting up for trying a low-level Kefka Tower play, which is interesting, but possible at level 20? It might be doable if she has really, really, really strong execution.
It could be possible. And actually, all this grinding sort of reminds me of the Free Enterprise randomizer. I know they have a tournament going on right now, and obviously grinding up to be able to take on the final boss is a big component of that game. Grinding is not really a big component of Worlds Collide runs, just because you generally get enough experience from the bosses to set you for the final battle. But this is one of those rare runs where that is not the case, and we're having to figure out sort of on the fly how to efficiently grind up to take on Kefka's Tower.
Yep, and if these four are this evenly matched, it's also worth noting that these four are not the only people competing in this week's community race. There are a few others behind the scenes. I don't remember, I did not count how many runners we have tonight. I want to say we're around 10-ish tonight. At any moment, we could find out that this race that we thought was for first was for second or third or anything like that. So if you're stuck at this point, you feel like everyone else is stuck at this point, you've really got to be thinking to yourself, okay, did I really pick an efficient decision here? And if not, am I going to lose off of that?
That's true. And with the encounters themselves randomized, there's no real sort of go-to location for grinding and leveling up. There are particular enemies that are more efficient than others, but we don't actually know where they are until we randomly stumble upon them. So all these, as you see, Jex now is looks like just doing some straight overworld grinding to see what he runs into.
You know, I don't really dislike this, although Slam Dancer is not the best XP per turn here. I think if you're really, really close and you just did Serpent Trench, you don't go and try and find another fixed encounter location. I think maybe if you're feeling a little bit behind at this point, you got to think, okay, I need to get these and I need to not be wasting any time at all fighting a boss afterwards. So really, if he only needs a couple levels, I like this play. But if he needs a lot more than that, I'm not entirely sure. But it does look like Brianna is going to just go ahead and do the dive at level 20. Or at very least, do her grind directly outside Kefka's Tower so she can just jump right in. I wouldn't be surprised to see either one happen here.
Well, it will be exciting either way. A low-level tower dive is always a dicey proposition. But yeah, as you said, around level 20, looks like Jex is 27, 28-ish on average. So getting up there. Mr. Entity, haven't checked in a while, but I believe it was mid-30s 20 minutes ago. So he's probably in a very strong position levels-wise. And once Mildane is done going around again, we'll see how they shake out.
You know, Brianna, if she is just going for Kefka's Tower play, nope, she looks like she is going to grind outside here. I was going to say, if she is going for this level 20 Kefka's Tower play and pulls it off, she's won the race off of that, and that would have been the most exciting gamble I've ever seen in one of these races. Is going to go for this instead. And I kind of like this plan where you're not going to be having the travel time afterwards. She bought a few tents so that she can just camp outside, then fly basically a couple pixels over, drop right into the tower. So really trying to keep it efficient there so that she doesn't have to go quite as far afterwards. And I kind of like that play as opposed to the more distant plans that we're seeing Mildane and Jex go for.
Yeah, absolutely. As mentioned, any enemy can be anywhere, so why not do your grinding at the base of Kefka's Tower?
Things to be concerned about. Confused Lock just used Quick. Other things to be concerned about if you're one of the other runners, Mr. Entity is basically set to go into Kefka's Tower once he does this Opera House check. And he is 1 Esper away, and I need to look real quick at what this Opera House gave.
It gave Strago.
Well, that's going to help the others. But he is 1 quick Esper away. He could just go to that auction house, buy a quick Esper, although I'm pretty sure Mr. Entity is one of the never auction house runners. I could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure he's one of the I would rather do literally anything else type of runners. But at this point in time, he's 1 Esper away. He's already got his grind done. I actually kind of think he might even have a tiny bit of a lead if it weren't for the Strago check being here.
That's a good point. Not the fastest check, but yeah, as soon as that final Esper appears, he should be in pretty good shape. Naku in chat pointing out that Mogs, all of these Mogs have had the Doom Dragon Rage for the entire game, which, correct me if I'm wrong, just freezes everything. And by everything, I mean everything.
I don't know, because I will be entirely honest and say that Rage is absolutely my weak point as a runner of this. And most nothing is immune to freezing, but the problem with freezing, the only real problem with it is that if you don't have the damage to kill afterwards. Because at this point, everyone has kind of been using that Mog as one of their primary damage dealers. So if they're doing that and he's just freezing constantly, sure, that's great, but how much time is that wasting? Then he could be doing damage instead and possibly still getting through fights faster.
That is a very good point. As it would be definitely the safest strat, but not quite the fastest.
Yeah, and I think, you know, if you were wanting to do a cheese and go into low-level thing, Doom Dragon Rage probably is basically the most useful tool in your arsenal at this point. Obviously, none of our runners on stream are doing that, but if we find one of these other runners off stream tonight who's running in this community race just suddenly comes in like 20 minutes before anyone else, I would be thinking, okay, they cheesed that tower with that Doom Dragon very successfully.
Yeah, again, this, you know, having the deep knowledge of the game, of the rages, of the quirks of the system, you know, I think it kind of separates the top tier runners from the rest of us. Right, and myself, I mean, you are of course an excellent runner.
Oh, no, I'm not at all a great runner in this game. In fact, we did some statistical analysis back on KGP1, and I believe, if I'm remembering right, I was actually the statistical, like, average player in this game. So I am completely dead center here. I'm not at all a good runner like these ones are.
But above average of commentary. Very happy to have you. As looks like Mildane is done with his grind, or done with their grind, and can stock up on some items, and hopefully we'll get a look at their party level, and we may see someone enter the tower.
Yep. And if Mildane is out of that river, I gotta think he's done with that grind, so he might be our first person to enter. But this isn't over just when the grind ends, because how much you ground and what you have is going to depend on how fast you get through that tower. And it's perfectly possible that someone who's spent a bit more time leveling might actually just pull ahead in the tower through the speed advantage from killing things faster.
That is true. Just getting to the tower is half the battle. Then you have to go through the final dungeon of the game and all the bosses in it. Mr. Entity finding his Strago, so probably not thrilled about that, but we'll see what he decides to check next.
Well, Brianna is going to be our first person to enter the tower here, and we're going to see if that grind is sufficient very, very soon.
You see her being very, very clever about calibrating the party level for each of these three groups, having a leveled party member and an unleveled one to hopefully average out and lower the difficulty of the bosses that she'll face.
Yep, and also trying to figure out what the best way of splitting up parties is in terms of what they can do. I'm interested in the fact that she put her Go-Go with Locke. I think she's been using her Locke a little bit as a caster here and there. So that Go-Go being on the same route as your main caster is usually what you want, because you can at very least make use of his ability to use the spells of anyone that he happens to be with. I'm not sure about how that... I did notice that I think she forgot to equip her Moogle Charm onto that Go-Go at very least. So she might even be doing a little bit more leveling here.
Maybe.
Maybe this was the play all along. Maybe you do a grind outside and then do your grind while you're walking through that tower, making use of that X zone to try and knock party members out as quickly as possible.
I mean, this is definitely a very winnable battle, and one that should give a fair chunk of experience. As Mr. Entity is heading into the Magitech factory, finding that other pair of fixed dice, will certainly be happy to find an Esper once he gets up to that point. Jex is doing some Coliseum gambling, and I think Mildane is preparing to enter the tower as well.
Yep, it looks that way. Was doing quite a bit of shopping. Nope, going back to World of Balance. Gonna do some more shopping, I think. Nope, now heading back to World of Ruin. Maybe decided that he didn't need to, or perhaps did that thing that I know I've done at least once, where I think I'm in the other side, and then I go over and I start sliding down there, and I'm like, wait, oh, no, wait, I was in the right one to begin with. I should go back.
I have been there as well.
And Naku in chat pointing out that Jex is doing a non-standard Coliseum play for what we've seen since the updated Coliseum got released back in 0.9.0 here. He's actually risking consumable items in the hopes of getting something out of it, but not knowing what the reward is. It has not paid off quite yet, but if he gets something huge out of this, then that tips the scales back in his favor.
That is true, though at this point I'm not exactly sure what he might be looking for. Obviously, the S tier items, your Illuminas, your Minervas would be great to see, but there has been a pretty generous distribution of loot in this game already. So I worry that he might be, you know, doing a form of over looting out as we see him stepping away now. Oh, just saving and perhaps looking for more.
Well, Mildane's entered the tower, Brianna's entered the tower, Entity has his requirements and will likely be entering the tower pretty soon after here, although it's looking like he might actually go through the rest of Magitech for a few more levels here. So we know he's a little bit behind from that in terms of getting in. I think what he might be looking for at this point is defensive items. Because we've seen the fixed dice, we've seen one Illumina, if I'm remembering right, we've seen Valiant Knives everywhere. We haven't seen too many of the big ticket defensive items. We've seen some Elemental Shields, an Aegis Shield, and a Snow Muffler, and that's about it from what I can tell.
I think you're right. Though we do see some generous loot in the tower as well. Red Jacket is an excellent piece of armor, and Aegis Shield is a very solid shield. I just enjoyed. I didn't notice Mr. Entity had set up the double Valiant Knife Genji Glove offering setup, so that lock is going to be tearing through enemies for the rest of the game.
Yeah, it's the quick Genji Glove offering. Double Valiant Knife lock too. So he's going to be hitting with 2 Valiant Knives 16 times per turn, which is pretty good.
Pretty good.
And as was pointed out in chat by one of our trackers, Franklin, Quick is a defensive tool in a pinch because you can always just Quick and then the enemy's not doing anything while you're swinging away again the 16 times per turn here. And speaking of that, now is another good time as we're sort of going through this bit of level grinding and we're about to start getting into that end group of bosses here to give a quick shout out again to all of our runners. Make sure you give them a follow, as well as our restream team, again to Ashrin, our restreamer, and Grimwolf and Franklin, who are tracking this race, sort of reaching the point where they can relax a little bit as Jex enters the tower. But real good work, as always, from them. Love working with everyone on our restream team. And very excited to see how this tower goes, because at any moment we could see an off-stream finisher, but it is really looking like the ones on stream are very, very close.
Absolutely. Mildane finding another offering from a dragon battle in the tower. Yeah, except for Mr. Entity, we're all in the end game.
And that's interesting to me because I think Mr. Entity is really, really good to just go. And even if he enters this tower late, if he's just swinging away 16 times a turn again with that lock, there is a chance that any amount of time that he is losing now, he will make up through sheer force of how overwhelmingly powerful that lock is going to be once he gets fully going.
Very true. Brianna's still running without the Moogle Charm, taking these random battles, hoping to level up a bit right at the end here.
Yeah, I think Jex has been doing the same thing. Nope, equipping the Moogle Charm to that Setzer. Looks like he is happy with that Terra at level 32, which, you know, oftentimes kind of the baseline is, it depends a lot on your gear, but around mid-30s is where you want to start diving Kefka's Tower. So he's going to be a little bit underpowered relative to where you would normally be. But I think he'll be completely fine. Mildane is way over leveled. He's, I think, in the 40s. Honestly, I can't read a single bit of text on his screen, so I'm kind of guessing there at that point in time. And Brianna's a little bit there too. I actually think that Jex's strategy of don't take these and just get through is probably better. But speaking of the Magi Master with the death counter, here we are.
This is a rough boss. Certainly my least favorite boss in the game. We'll see how these level 46-ish characters handle him.
My concern is if these characters are level 46-ish, this Magi Master is not too far off of that as well.
He's also 46-ish, yeah.
If I'm remembering right, level 40 in the scaling is where the highest tier of those damaging abilities start showing up on the scale random flag. So, oh
Just
no.
a rough boss. We'll have to see how Mildane adjusts to this. Magimaster, no joke.
That is a very scary fight, but the consolation prize a bit there for Mildane is that's going to be a very scary fight for everyone. And we're going to see how the other two who are already in the tower handle it pretty soon.
He does have the tools. Obviously, putting that ribbon on lock immediately. Mildane has the gear, has the levels, has ways to do defense ignoring damage, which is really the best way to take care of Magimaster. It's about getting that preparation ready and executing in the fight, and crossing your fingers that Magimaster isn't too mean to you.
I don't think that plan is going to work out for them because, again, that death counter is probably going to be mean no matter what. But, maybe just not getting petrified alone is going to be good.
That's right. I didn't even notice that when I was checking out the seed earlier. But as you mentioned already, yeah, Magimaster is gonna cast a little surprise for them right at the end of the fight, and it will not be a pleasant surprise, whatever it is going to be.
And, speaking of that surprise, I want to give another quick shout out to Grimwolf, who did pick the flags with a little bit of help from the rest of us as well, giving them a bit of tips for tonight, which I gotta admit, it's probably a very scary run for our runners, but it has been an absolute thrill to watch because this race remains very close, and it really has been a great test of skill. But Mildane, through that fight, locked with 1,000 left, Mog's still up. Pretty good play there.
That is the beauty of gear and preparation, turning a terrifying battle into one that took, I think, all of 30 seconds. Very well done by Mildane. We'll have to see how the rest of our runners react as Jex is about to get his surprise.
Yeah, I think he might be in for a little bit easier of a time because he's a lower level. He's not getting as hard of abilities thrown at his face. So that might be pretty good for him. He might end up having an easier time just because of it, because what's scary to me about Magimaster is twofold. First of all, his absurd defense, meaning that you have to basically have defense ignoring equipment or berserk him. Or what he does meanwhile. And if he's doing a bit easier of abilities, then I think Jex is actually going to have a much easier time with it just because he didn't grind quite as far as Mildane did.
That is true. Mildane, who is still taking dragon fights in the tower. I wonder if they're still hoping for some top tier gear. They're certainly not getting experience from this. I wonder why they're making this decision to go for dragons.
To me, I would take dragons here if I feel unconfident in having enough gear to take on the rest of it. Again, I would be concerned about the lack of defense. And let me tell you, the Cat Hood is technically defense, but that lock is rocking a crystal mail, and I think that is why he's taking these fights. He's hoping for a snow muffler that maybe Locke can equip, maybe Locke can't. A Minerva that maybe Locke can equip, maybe Locke can't. Even a Genji armor that maybe Locke can equip, maybe Locke can't. Anything better than a crystal mail at this point, you might as well go for it.
Yeah, in fact, you see all these runners are still going for chests, still trying to squeeze some gear out of these last few checks in the game. As Mr. Entity is about to meet Mr. Magimaster.
Yep, and if you just take it through boss progression through the tower, that does move him into third now. but again, a very close third. I have to think that he is uniquely set up to deal with this with that quick double Valiant Knife offering lock, because that is going to take care of this Magi Master in really fast order. Did Mildane just delete one of the weights? Is that what I missed?
Well, luckily they do respawn.
Imagine if that was just a full-on soft lock that you couldn't get around and he'd done that. That would be
the ultimate April Fool's. That would be brutal. But yeah, it is really, this race is really tightened up at the end here. Mildane about to go through this last sort of three-way gauntlet before the final battle. Jex not far behind. Brianna seems still doing some grinding with random encounters, and as you said, Mr. Entity is really caught up here at the end.
Well, Atma Weapon at the Guardian spot is a nice breath of fresh air away from this, and that's going to be a happy moment for everyone.
Yeah,
at least it's not
our
Magi Master.
Five-legged friend.
Yeah.
Anything's better than Magi Master.
I don't know. I'll take Magi Master over Piranhas, because Piranhas you have to just sit there and wait. And with Normalize and Distort and Scaled Random, you can have the Death Piranha of Doom after waiting there for what feels like 20 minutes. So in this case, I will take the Magi Master over a couple of other things at least.
Fair enough.
I think we're about to have our "Can you delete the statues?" question answered here.
Oh, I think Mildane was thinking about it. I was thinking, I think the reason the Zozo boss can be deleted is because I think you have to talk to them to start the battle, whereas the statues you just run into. That might be unique for, or at least particular to the Zozo boss.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is. I think that there's maybe one or two other places that you could use it, but that definitely sounds right. Doomgaze can be a very, very big troll if he does the wrong things here, but I think Mildane will be fine, as we do see Jex entering this Atma Weapon fight and Mr. Entity about to enter the same Atma Weapon fight a couple of seconds right afterwards.
The Atma Weapon sync. But yes, to your point, Doomgaze is always the, oh no, is my party a multiple of 5? Heart attack.
Now, what's interesting to me is Brianna is still taking these random encounters. Does this pay off in terms of speed later? Because I kind of got a feel like she's going to end up just a bit behind from taking all these encounters, meaning that she was probably a bit behind going in technically. It's kind of hard to tell with these flags. Meanwhile, the near simultaneous deaths on Mr. Entity and Jex's side for those two bosses right there.
Yeah, these runners are really having their way with these tower battles. I think, to your point, the unfortunate thing for Brianna is if you're grinding in the tower, you sort of have to do 3 times the grinding, because your party members, at least the ones you want to use in the final battle, are all split up like that. So she may be, effectively doing 3 times the work here in this tower, as she is about to meet the Magi Master, Jex and Mr. Entity are totally synced up boss-wise.
I have to agree on that. I think if we were playing with split XP instead of the everyone gets all of the XP from every fight flag, that she would actually have the optimal strategy here. But in this case, it's not working out, as we do find a French Vanilla Guardian over here at the Goddess statue. But meanwhile, over on the left-hand side of your screen here, Mr. Entity has started to pull ahead of Jex a bit.
Just by seconds. This is almost synchronized worlds colliding here. It's fun to watch.
Now, I think I saw a reset on Brianna's side there. I'm not entirely sure. I know I saw a reset somewhere. I'm wondering if she just hit something that she didn't feel prepped to deal with. Oh, cast Berserk on Setzer instead of Magi Master. That will do it. But it does
Mm,
look like she is going to use the Berserk strats to get through there, which is, I think, probably what I would pick too in this case.
that's how I used to do it in vanilla. Still works. If you Berserk Magimaster, he cannot use that wall change ability and will not be setting up that very annoying, nearly perfect defense.
Meanwhile, Mildane has passed this final statue. Jax and Mr. Entity still a couple of boss fights behind, need to get through this Ultros 2 and the Guardian, neither of which should pose them any trouble, but Mildane is looking like he's going to be ready to get into this final fight very quickly and be the first one on stream to get in there.
Yes, indeed. Here we go. And with all those levels from the river, Mildane should be in a pretty good position to do this. I think the scaling stops around level 45, so Mildane's level 46 plus party is right where you want to be in this position. As it looks like Jax is still low 30s, and Mr. Entity, see Mog is 42, so around that level.
I think the question for me is, if you know that you have bad defense, on Mr. Entity's side, his strategy seems to be basically dump everything possible into lock with Genji Glove and with that offering and the Valiant Knives. The problem with that is you can't control where the damage goes on the final fight, and you do not want that damage to go on the wrong things on the first half, because I actually think that he might need to be worried about Quake off of the head, because if you don't kill the head on the first tier first, he casts Quake on your whole party, and that could be a pretty scary moment.
That is true. We'll have to see how the sort of damage allocation works out for Mildane as Brianna finishes off the Magimaster. That's a big 9,000 damage hit on the hand that you want to hit, the right hand, as a matter of fact. A lot of damage going to the head as well.
Jax is struggling a bit with this Ultros. Ultros 2 can be a little bit of a troll boss in the Distort and Normalized flags. He got his Celas imped. Celas is trying to solo, not having the easiest time to put this damage out here, and he's lost quite a bit of time off of this fight just not cooperating with him. And down he goes, back up, still gonna keep going here.
That's our Ultros. He's sort of the troll enemy of the vanilla game, and he's living up to that in this battle here. As Mildane is up to the second tier of this final battle, probably one of the more complicated tiers, just because of the different enemies and what they do. Whole bunch of things.
One thing I haven't seen, although we do have Siren, and I'm not sure if Mildane has it equipped, I have not seen a source of mute for magic in the back there. And magic is, to me, actually the second most threatening thing in here, and I almost always want that mute available for it. If he can't take that magic out of there, that's like twice as many dangerous abilities, because honestly, the other two don't do much. If he doesn't have instant death for that, for tools, that's, basically doubling the amount of targets that he could take out of this fight. It could slow him down a good deal.
That is true, as you see targeting magic in the back with a cool quad 9 pearl.
Now, I've been keeping an eye on the times as they've been going into these fights, and Mildane has about a 3.5 minute lead on Mr. Entity going into this fight. Does Mr. Entity have a 3.5 minute faster Kefka fight? Because with that quick lock, he could actually catch up here still. This is not over by a long shot yet, as Jex does finally get through that troublesome Ultros.
I saw that, yes, just with the imped Celis. Well, we will see. You know, 3.5 minutes is not a ton when it comes to this final battle. You know, anything can happen, and I do think the tower gets, or the phases of the battle get more dangerous as you ascend. One unfortunate Kefka counter, and you're right back at the beginning, having to restart. So we'll see. This Valiant Knife lock for Mr. Entity doing a lot of work right now.
Now imagine if he gets Fallen One off of God Kefka and does double quick Valiant Knife lock, because I don't think Kefka has enough health to live through that.
Would love to see that.
So if you assume on that basis that for Mr. Entity, the final tier is basically free, which, I mean, really, the final tier is pretty much the easiest as long as you don't get a bad counter. It's just when you get a bad counter, it's completely fatal to you, so it kind of ends up being hard by default.
Yes, it's the simplest, but simple can always mean, you're simply dead.
If he just gets nuked from that, and just nukes that out, and Mildane has a bit of a rougher time having to deal with some of the nastier counters, then that alone could be a huge difference, as Mildane does reach tier 3 now.
Yeah, he's progressing through this battle pretty quickly. Looks like everyone in the party is fire immune except for Locke.
Now here's another thing that concerns me that we haven't talked about this race because it hasn't come up, because it usually comes up somewhere earlier if it happens. When Sleep here on tier 3 dies, he casts an ability called Calmness, if you haven't watched this randomizer before. And that is a physical attack that is instant death if it hits on whoever it hits. And since it's his death counter, it means that those people are removed from the fight. So normally your way around this is you find, at best, Golem or Fenrir, cast them as Espers. You don't take the damage, you're fine. Secondary way around it's usually life 3 or an extremely well-timed Phantom or even extremely well-timed Palador can basically help your way through it. Our runners have none of those unless one of them snuck life 3 and I didn't notice on an Esper, which is possible on Mildane's side, because again, I can't read any of his minions.
I think you're correct, though. I didn't see any real hard calmness counters, so I guess Mildane using the cross your fingers strategy. I also noticed Mildane's lock has 7,600 hit points, so that is a seriously buff Valiant Knife user.
And that's my concern for both Mr. Entity and Mildane, is they have everything dumped into their locks, especially Mr. Entity. Entity has way more dumped into locks than Mildane does. If that lock gets knocked out by Calmness, that is going to destroy.
Like exactly happened there.
There we go. Commentator's Curse 101.
All right, well, let's see the real battle now. Jex taking some very last-minute grinds just for Celis. He was neck and neck with Mr. Entity for a while, but I guess didn't feel comfortable with party levels and is sort of falling behind a bit from that. But on Mildane's side, one angel himself descends, and we'll have to see how this Valiant Knifeless party takes care of this.
I think he'll still be fine because again, he did not have as much invested into that lock as someone like Mr. Entity, who has basically dropped every piece of offense he can into that lock. Quick, everything is. I think he'll be fine, but it is going to take a good amount longer, and that's kind of the question here is, does he just get a bad counter somewhere, and that's a problem? Does he take it easy, knowing that he might have a bit of a rougher time and sort of do that wait until goner phase and try and blow him up thing, or does he just gun it? Because I think he's just going to gun it. I think he'll probably will kill this pretty quickly still.
Yeah, I think that that Celos with Illumina it should be enough to take care of this fight. Oh, and Mog, who has been really kind of the low-key MVP for all of these runners throughout the seed, doing 9,000 plus damage with that cast.
If you get just enough magic, you can blow them all up. And you see he has used Morph as well to make sure that he is pumping out as much damage as possible to just try and blow up this final phase. We are getting these shakes, and we do have Goner going off, but I think Kefka's done pretty much right after this.
Yeah, this is not going to wipe the party. This is a battle that's going to end very soon. A nice quad 9 pro proc to finish it off for Mildane, who is the winner of this Final Fantasy VI Worlds Collide community race stream. Congratulations.
Yep, GG's to him. We will get him in here in just a moment or two. We did have another finisher, but we do have a couple little questions there, but we're gonna focus on this for just a moment here. Mr. Entity is having a terrible time with this tier 2.
That can happen. You know, phase 2 are really the most complicated and the most annoying in a lot of ways. But Mr. Entity is through that onto Sleep and Girl. As Brianna gets doomed by Doomgaze and has to take a restart there, unfortunately.
Yep, deeply unfortunate for her there. I mean, she's done an amazing job through this seed so far, and I gotta really take my hat off to her a bit here that I think that she has done really, really well to get this far in what she's been doing. The strategy just did not end up paying off, and sometimes that's just how it goes. It's definitely not been on the execution end, and as she is really one of our absolute newest runners here, like as Naku's saying in chat, 3 weeks, this is extremely impressive.
Absolutely. No, all of these runners have played really well, and again, this is for those who may not be as familiar with some of the more standard flag sets for Worlds Collide. This is a bit of uncharted territory. Worlds Collide is not the sort of randomizer that really has a lot of grinding in it. So all these runners, were basically given 20 minutes before the stream starts to check out the flags and figure out a grind strategy.
Sorry, just trying to see if we can get Mildane in here for an interview. As Brianna taking another quick moment to pop her way through this Doomgaze fight. I think she'll be fine in the end. Jex now heading into Kefka. Mr. Entity on tier 3, not having any problem with it.
That is a hard-hitting Meteor that Sleep just dropped, but Mr. Entity, fortunately, with the levels to soak it up. We'll have to see if this lock can survive the calmness that we all know is coming.
And joining us for an interview is tonight's almost sub 2 winner of the day, Mildane. First of all, GG's on a very, very impressive run.
Hello. Thank you. That was a lot of fun.
I gotta ask, because I feel like this has been the hot topic of the night watching this. What did you think of these flags now that you've actually run through the race?
I wasn't that intimidated by them. I mean, I knew that no boss experience was going to necessitate some different strategies, which you saw from my run. Um, but yeah, it was actually a lot of fun.
Well, you seemed like you were having fun with it. I think we all appreciated renaming your characters for that Elite River grind. I'm curious, right at the end there, how are you feeling when your Valiant Knife 7,000 HP lock went down to calmness?
I mean, I knew I was going in there without calmness protection, and I knew that I had plenty of damage on my other characters, so he got through Sleep and Girl, which is kind of what I wanted him for, so since everyone else was doing mostly elemental damage.
Fair enough.
Now, the question to me about the level grind at the end, because everyone had different answers to this, so I feel like this is a real important question to ask everyone. Why did you pick, in your case, the level grind of, I'm just going to go around the river like this is the 90s and this game just came out?
Partly nostalgia, since I did have health, which is a throwback to what you do when you first get access to the river. Partly because when I went through the first time, I just went through to check and see if the encounters were safe, which, except for the Enoch one, which needed some special handling, they weren't too bad. And just that way, it was just, I just hold down the A button unless I got the Enoch Fortis encounter. I also thought about possibly looking for good undead encounter zones, but I didn't see very many except for that. I think I accidentally ran into one in Zozo at one point.
You also made excellent use of the Y NPC remove flag. Had you practiced that before, or were you just picking it up as you played?
When I saw the flag set announced for tonight's race, I was like, what the heck does that mean? So I actually had to roll up a seed and figure that out and be like, oh, okay, this is actually kind of useful. Except when I accidentally deleted the 4-ton weight.
Now, another question for me about your run is you took a very different strategy from what we saw on stream with everyone else, in that you stayed at as low of a level as humanly possible for as long as you could. What was your thought process behind that? Because obviously it ended up paying off.
Yeah, well, I figured I had enough stuff to cheese the bosses if they stayed at low level. I had a handful of rods, sword tech, some decent magic early on. So I just kind of figured that I didn't need to do that many bosses because there were enough free checks, and with NPC delete you could make Zozo a free check, that you didn't actually have to fight that many bosses.
One more question about the NPC thing. I was curious throughout this seed whether the statues at the top of the tower could be deleted. Were you trying to do that at the end, or were you just...
I thought to at the last minute, but it was too late. That already triggered the encounter. I think it triggers the encounter as soon as you walk up to it. I did try to delete the guys in Zone Eater, and you can't. So I'm assuming you probably also can't delete the statues.
That's sort of what we were thinking as well.
Well, that was a very, very well run race. Obviously, again, GG's to you on the race win for the evening by about 7 minutes.
Yeah, I see Mystery's going to be in here shortly.
Yeah, Mystery will be coming by shortly. He just finished second place with a 2:07.11, so GG's to him as well. Jex is in the final fight. Brianna's getting there pretty soon. Mildane, do you have any final words for us today?
I'm looking forward to checking out the VODs for this, because there were a lot of options for some fun stuff. I was sad I never found Dragon Horn or a couple other things, but I think a lot of good options. See what other people wound up doing.
All right.
For
And
sure. All
and
those
thank you
Aura
for
Lances
all
and
the
not a
restreaming
Dragon Horn to
that
be
you do.
found.
Fantastic. Did you have any other questions for Mildane before we let him go for today?
No, I think we covered it. Excellent run, GG. And you know, a very unique background image.
Shout out to the FF6 speedrun community. And good luck to anyone still racing. Thanks for chatting with me.
Thanks for joining us as Jex is on phase 2, throwing some pearls at Magic, the enemy in the back of this clump of enemies.
And we are joined by tonight's second place finisher, Mr. Entity. First of all, GG's on that that very well won run race. What did you think tonight?
Not a lot of offense to throw around would be my main thing, I guess. I eventually found a couple Valiant Knives and a Dragon Horn, but there was like no magic, no particularly high tier weapons aside from that knife. So yeah, not a lot of gear, which is often how you get through Kefka, is just gear.
I think we saw that from a lot of our runners, you know, looting, checking chests right up to the very end. Did you sort of? It seemed like you put a ton of resources into that very dangerous lock. Was that sort of your plan for taking on the final battle?
That was my main source of offense. 100% was just a fairly high level double Valiant Knife lock. With a HP of plus 100% on him for a while. But then Calmness was not kind to him, and also I had no real like armor and stuff, so anytime he took a hit in that final Kefka battle, it was like 1300 damage minimum. So that was fun.
Now, I had been planning on asking everyone as they came in what their reason they, took the level grinds they did, but you did not take a dedicated level grind like anyone else. So do you want to walk us a bit through your process and how you approached this with the boss XP flag off?
Basically what I did was, as soon as possible when I was doing my first check, just take off the Moogle charm and see if I got lucky with what was there. And I did. But then I ran into Goddess, which was extremely unlucky. But then I spent like 6 turns with 4 health and killed her, which was extremely lucky. And
that was a very exciting battle, a very tense battle right at the start of the seed. I believe that Mog had 4 hit points by the end.
Yeah, I was sitting on reset just with the mouse right over it for about a minute. And Mog just kept not dying. So I'm gonna highlight that later. That was ridiculous luck. Just like HP percent attacks, and then Rasp, and then Osmos, and then nothing because Locke's really fast, or Mog, or whatever. Mog had fairly high speed that seed. Well, yeah, it was crazy. But then it was a dead check. So swings and roundabouts, I guess, on that entire thing. But yeah, my main strategy was just, I'll leave the Moogle charm off until I'm a decent level, assuming I can find things on the way. Like, I'll do a fight or 2 in each check, see if they're good, and if not, put the Moogle charm back on, and if so, just leave it off for a while and get to a reasonable level.
I believe of our 4 racers, you were the last to actually enter the tower. Some of them tried sort of grinding as they go, taking random encounters in the tower. Was that on your mind at all, or were you happy with your level?
I would not have tried to grind in the tower. You're splitting your good characters up. So you got to find good encounters on every party and then get through them multiple times with various people. So I think if I had gotten to the end and still needed levels, well, for one thing, I tried to fight a couple dragons and then found out that, oh, they don't give experience because they count as bosses. But also, I would have just gone to like Narsh World of Ruin or something and fought some easy grinds outside a heal spot. Grinding in Kafka's Tower, I find to be like a last-minute resort if you run into Doomgaze or something.
Which, of course, everyone did run into. But fortunately, no one got hit by the level 5 Doom.
Yeah, I got one of my guys got hit by it, but they weren't the one person that mattered. There was also that Magimaster. I imagine some people had more difficulty with that than I did, because I just hit him with a Valiant Knife 8 times and he died.
That was a not quite a roadblock, but definitely a speed bump for a few of the runners. You know, I personally am never happy to run into Magimaster anywhere, but how do you feel about running into a boss like that in the tower?
Well, if anybody was watching a couple days ago, Boo and the Zenobian both had to leave the tower because of either Magimaster or Tritalk, which are both sort of the same thing. You need very specific things to get past them. So in this case, I lucked out that was the path that Locke was on. And he had the tools to deal with it. But if you don't, that can sometimes be you need to warp out and you just lost. Or everybody has to warp out and you're fine. Or some crazy nonsense happens. It's not a nice fight to find.
Very true. Final Fantasy VI, some crazy nonsense happens. Maybe the unofficial name for Worlds Collide.
I would vote for it. Also, the Magimaster final counter was on. I got hit with a Quake. I don't know what everyone else was hit with, but that left Locke at like 40 HP, so that could have gone much worse than it did for me.
We saw, I think, a Murton and an Ice 3, and I don't know what Brianna got because that was when you were in the final fight, and I don't know what she ended up getting for it, but it wasn't anything particularly threatening. Definitely not as threatening as Ultima.
That's gonna just depend where people are in levels and how kind the tiering of the random element scaling is, because it's not just like a straight number. It's, well, it might be above or below this by some percent. So blah blah blah. It's complicated. But yeah, I think overall, outside of the start, where the goddess almost killed me for like 2 minutes straight. And then outside of the end, where Calmness just ate 2 of my characters, especially the most important one, that went reasonably well for me. So, yeah.
I take full responsibility for any Calmness-related things, because when Mildane got to Tier 3, I went on for about a minute about how bad it would be if Calmness took out your respective locks, so fully sorry for that.
You have no forgiveness.
I think we accidentally used all of our commentator cursing powers on both of those Calmness hits. I think no lock has survived to Kefka yet.
Well, we'll see if these other 2 manage to get him there. I take it everyone is kind of using him as the knife wielder. If everyone brought him.
Yeah, everyone's brought him is basically doing a knife wielder. I do want to take a quick moment out of this interview to note that Jex is in trouble. He only has his lockup on Tier 2. It's probably recoverable, but this is a bit of a sketchy moment for him. But yeah, no, you are spot on. Everyone took lock for knives. The only real variance that the other 2 I've done that I'm seeing from you in this case is that there were fixed dice for sale, and some of the other runners did pick those up.
Yeah, I found a fixed dice, and I'm seeing Brianna's using them. Once I'm halfway through a seed, if I have a way to not use fixed dice, I will avoid them. They're too slow and they're too unreliable. But some people really like them, and sometimes it works out. So, you can't say it's a bad idea. It's just literally a gamble, which is appropriate to the item. But yeah, I'll let you guys get on with your commenting of these final battles and leave room for interviews. Just gonna say, we do have, not sure if you've been plugging it, but Fraggle is doing a 24-hour Worlds Collide marathon for charity. So after this is over, people should go check that out.
Absolutely, and we will also be, as long as we get everything set up right, we will also be raiding over to there. So anyone who has not been over to Fraggle's stream before, we will guide you along the way once this race is over. Again, GG's. Thank you very much, Mr. Entity, for a very, very fun to watch and very, very close up until the end race.
Yeah, thanks for doing the restreams, etc. As always, thanks to Atma and the standard outro things. I just gave a thumbs up to camera and realized you couldn't see it. I'm a genius.
I do the same thing through these entire interviews, so it's fine.
Perfect. Well, you guys have a good one, and we'll see you the next time.
Thanks so much, GG. Back to the race, though, we have another sort of head-to-head sync-up. Jex and Brianna both at Phase 2. Jex having a pretty difficult time. He was down to just lock for a while, and is in fact down to just lock again. Meanwhile, Brianna is quicker to the fight, and we'll see if she can perhaps pull ahead here.
I think there's a certain temptation on Jex's end to spam quick to try and get your party back up here, and I think that might not be correct. I think he really needs to get one of those damaging enemies out of the fight entirely, because right now this is just going to keep happening and he's a bit stuck in a loop. This Southern Cross spam is just destroying him. And if he can get around that, he'll be fine and he'll recover. But it's just a matter of getting that off and trying to get through. He might not have as much offense on his lock as I thought, because it looks like he's trying to get through with that Cella's, using Empower to leech and health.
Using a cheeky Empower. I like that. But yeah, this now a zombified Celis.
That is unfortunate. This is still recoverable. Now a frozen zombie Celis. Just needs to get that lock through though, and he'll be fine, but it is still looking pretty scary.
Yeah, well, Locke immune to fire damage, and oh, never mind. That's going to be a restart.
And unfortunately, with that for the evening, Jex has decided to take the forfeit after that wipe, but still an extremely good run from him. Very proud of how well he did so far. GG's to him, regardless of how it ended. We're going to see if he wants to come in and talk about it or not, which, his decision, but a very, very good run from him up to that point.
Absolutely. Meanwhile, Brianna's still powering through, using that Ice 3 that we've seen all the runners using right at the end. I guess we didn't really touch on it, during most of the race, but both Mr. Entity and Mildane pointed out that this is a pretty magic-poor seed. Not a lot of, high-powered magical offense. It seems like Ice 3 is the best that any of the runners were able to find. Ice 3 and Pearl, Mr. Entity helpfully pointing out.
And joining us, unfortunately, after that very, very rough fight is Jex Frock. First of all, GG's on an extremely good run up to that point. Unfortunately, just had one of those fights that didn't work out for you there.
Yeah, GG's. Yeah, the Kefka fight, losing Terra the way I did was like, Phase 1 already took me long enough. Should I reset or keep going? Let's keep going. I still got Mog. And then things just steamrolled and I just couldn't keep up with it. I thought Terra was safe from Merton, but apparently she wasn't. So that was because the idea was to have Locke, Celeste, and Terra having protection from Merton, have Mog in midair cast Merton to get that damage out, and then proceed. It just didn't happen to work out that way.
Yeah, all of the runners seemingly, looting right up to the very end. A little worried about, sort of the defensive options available. What did you think about, sort of the gear you found and party you were able to create?
My offensive capabilities was fine. I was cool with what I had offensively. My relics and defense were terrible. It would have been nice to find, say, an offering, which I never did. That would have, I would have been able to have, Mog continuing do his dragon dice and have Celeste doing fixed dice offering. Or, for that matter, have somebody throw the red jacket on, I don't know if Celeste or Mog could have taken red jacket, but done the Genji glove offering, double fixed dice, and then proceeded to use magic with the other person or whatever side ability that they had. Finding that 100% HP Esper, it was a trap. I did not get high enough levels for that Esper to even remotely matter. So it just, the whole thing, my end game was just an absolute train wreck, unfortunately.
Yeah, we did see 2 offerings over the course of that seed, and they ended up being the Katana Soul tucked away in Daryl's tomb, and the other one behind one of the Kefka's Tower dragons. So definitely very out of the way unless you took that one specific check or took a fight that really you probably didn't have a reason to take. So,
The dragon I skipped.
this seed is quite mean. One thing I did want to hit on that I've been asking everyone else as well was how you approached your level grind, because what we saw you do is, of course, you went over, did Serpent Trench, and then took those overworld encounters. What led you to choose that specifically as your source of levels there?
I initially just wanted to do the regular grind spots, the Fire Mansion, the back end of Magitech Factory, Serpent's Trench, and just grind my levels there. Which, end of the day, I was mid-30s by the time I got to Kefka. Other than that, enemies were shuffled me. It could have just been a total slog trying to, find the area where some good EXP. That is the one problem with that flag, is it definitely makes it a difficult grind.
For sure, and as we saw, every single runner that we watched in this race had a different strategy for dealing with the grind and gaining those levels. Did you have any thought, just because the bosses were scaled on party level, did you think about where you wanted your party to be as you were sort of progressing through the game? Going through your checks, hitting bosses. Did you want to be at a certain level? Did you want to be high or low? Or how did you deal with that?
Because Final Kefka was not scaled, I wanted my levels to be as high as possible at any given point. I could have, because I had the fixed dice and all that, the majority of the fights were not going to be an issue. Same thing with Kefka's Tower. I just made sure I kept my extra characters, like the extra characters that I picked up. I just kept them sitting in the bank and don't level them. When I got to Kefka's Tower, put one of them in each of the parties, and that drops the party average level for the enemy scaling, which makes those final 7 bosses or dragons, if I decide to fight them, a little bit easier.
Yeah, and I think if I were to tweak one thing from this flag set, it would probably be unshuffling those encounters so you can pick your level grind a bit more. And really, you did extremely well up to that point. It was extremely close going into Kefka's tower, and again, very unfortunate what ended up happening on that final fight, but you ran an absolutely amazing race up to that point and was really fun to watch.
Yes, thank you very much. Thanks for having me once again, and I'm sure you guys will continue to see me in the future.
We hope
GG's.
so. GG, great race. Meanwhile, Brianna is finally up to Kefka, also getting burned pretty hard by Calmness, which there really just was no answer for in this seed. We never saw a Golem or Fenrir Esper to mitigate that. Certainly no Life 3, though those big quad 9 dice rolls are certainly helping out Brianna as she takes on this Kefka fight.
Yeah, she lost the 2 party members to Calmness, but I think in her case, she got lucky and lost probably the 2 best party members for her to lose at that point. So she's in pretty good shape. She's just going to get through this very easily. It's really just a matter of time at this point.
That's true, and of course, fingers crossed that she might just assert dominance and Doom Dragon Rage to freeze this Kefka.
Yep, we did mention that this was going to be the very safe way through this, and it sure is.
I suppose it is unusual to run into a seed that really just offers you no outs for Calmness. It's something that you have to plan for in every seed. You always know it's coming once you take care of sleep. But yeah, just no outs for it.
Yep, and at this point in time, the big concern is like that, those hyperdrive counters, other counters. Only having 2 characters up for Goner is a little bit scary because Goner does split its damage between the targets that you have, so is going to need to pick that lock back up. I think this will stabilize, but it's going to be a little bit sketchy for a little bit.
It's going to be close. Makes it through there, makes it through the Goner, so should be in hopefully good position to end this fight. To answer something chat's talking about, yes, no enemies are immune to freeze because it's not a normal status effect like stop or slow or mute. It's, I'm pretty sure, something that the developers never intended the player to be able to use. I think every single enemy in the game is freezable.
I think so too.
Not pointing out, the same is also true for Charm.
Yeah, I think you're right. In the end, though, it's so rare that you get the right rage for it that we just don't usually see it. But again, very, very good, heads up knowledge from Brianna here, knowing drop that Doom Dragon on, you can freeze Kefka.
But why freeze when you can just throw ice shields at the problem?
Yeah, she has been throwing absolutely everything. She took a Pearl Rod off and broke that. She's just been going through every item in her inventory that she can throw and break at it, really throwing everything at this fight. I think she's probably feeling just a little bit nervous after losing those couple of characters, playing it safe. Nothing wrong with that. Definitely going to grind her way through this.
Oof. Just a casual 9,700 damage Havoc Wing from Kefka.
Thankfully, it's only Gogo, which sounds a bit more insulting to Gogo than you would think, but Gogo usually has worse stats than your other party members because he just. First of all, she hasn't been using Gogo, and secondly, you can't put a stat boosting Esper on Gogo, which is the main downside for her. But now she is in this Goner Shake phase. She's going to punch it. And this is very, very good application of game mechanics because Kefka cannot counter while he's charging Goner. So all of this damage, she doesn't have to worry about Ultima. She doesn't have to worry about that Hyperdrive counter. It's perfectly safe.
That's true. Throw up a quick and throw out some offering fixed dice. These are some very, very high rolls. And there it is.
Yep, finishing in third place for tonight with a time of 2:34:47 is Brianna Fofana. Very, very, very good time for someone who, again, I believe, has only been playing this randomizer for about 3 weeks. I don't think I could have gotten that time, and I've been at this for months. So, very GG's to her. We'll see if she wants to drop in for a quick interview. But yeah, that was quite an impressive final fight there, taking that little bit of a problem from those 2 deaths to calmness and really just really, really just getting us through there.
Gutting it out at the end, throwing everything but the kitchen sink. Smart use of playing around Kefka's counters. I think all these runners really had a challenge before them, figuring out, first of all, how to even make it to the tower in the final battle, and then how to get through it. Since we have a moment, might as well give a shout out to all these runners. As you see in chat, please give them a follow. They are all very, very talented at this randomizer that we all love. And I certainly learn something new every time I watch someone else stream this game, and perhaps you will too. And also shout out to our Restream team, who are making this all happen, behind the scenes work to put this all together and bring this for you. Huge appreciation for them and for everyone at the Worlds Collide community to put this all together.
And real quick, also, while we're waiting, let's give a couple shout outs to some upcoming events that will be coming up on the FF6 Worlds Collide Twitch channel. On Thursday will be round number 2 of the KGP2 finals. That will be at 7 p.m. Eastern, much like our community race, same time. And on Friday will be a head-to-head match for the Final Fantasy VI Worlds Collide Coliseum, our tournament that is basically starting tomorrow. The qualification race is going underway right now. 7 p.m. on Friday on the FF6 Worlds Collide channel. Make sure you're there because it is going to be a very fun event of head-to-head seeds, which we don't really do much head-to-head. We haven't done head-to-head in quite a while, so it'll be definitely much more intense competitive experience than we've had recently.
For sure, should be exciting. Sorry, was that the KGP or the Coliseum?
That was both. I was talking about the KGP on Thursday, but I was talking about the Coliseum on Friday. We got both going on right now. We got all the competition going on.
Well, definitely exciting times for Worlds Collide. I myself I'm fairly new to this community. It's been really exciting to see it grow, to see all these tournaments and streams coming together, seeing all the really exciting changes and improvements in the randomizer just in the short time I've been here, and definitely great things on Mason. So I'm excited, and we're about to have another racer to talk about this very interesting seed.
Yep, a very big welcome to Brianna, our third place finisher with a time of 2:34:47. First of all, GG's on that very difficult but very, very well done seed, especially with, only about 3 weeks in this game under your belt. That was extremely impressive.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. This scene was spoopy.
It was a unique one for sure. A lot of runners had to kind of lean on Mog and that range ability early. Were you able to navigate the many rage options and
No,
fight your way
I
through this?
actually I found fixed dice in World of Balance Zen really early.
Oh, that's right.
So I also had the Genji glove and the offering by then. So I just dual wield fixed dice.
Well, it definitely worked. What were your thoughts about having to find a way to grind up levels for the final battle?
I actually found that preferable in a way. It felt more like I was playing the vanilla game, and that kind of helped settle down the race nerves.
So, a question for me that's related to this too is why did you choose the level grind that you chose right outside Kefka's tower?
Because I was getting ready to pop in. I was right there. I knew as soon as I hit low 30, I was diving into the tower, and then I was going to level up my lower characters there because I had no calmness protection. So I knew I was going to lose somebody.
Okay, because we were wondering about that grind in Kefka's Tower, but that actually just made quite a bit of sense, and obviously it worked very, very well for you there, having those characters there, because you had a tough time with calmness.
Yeah. I also wanted to gain a few more levels than I normally would because I knew my gear wasn't all that great. Like, I think my strongest armor was gold armor. And then I had a red cap or two, but yeah, I didn't have much in the way of armor, even though my weapons were generally good.
Yeah, that seemed to be a common theme in this seed was plenty of offense, not a lot of defense. And not really a ton of magic as well. How did you
Um,
navigate this sort of low magic seed?
so as soon as I saw Quake and Float in my early Esper checks, I knew I could use those strats, and by then I had already also had 2 magic power Espers and a hit point boost Esper. So I just went with that, and then when I found Ice 3 and Flare, I knew that was going to be my main damage outside of fixed dice.
For sure. Another thing I'm curious about for all these runners is what was your reaction when you ran into Magimaster in the tower?
Oh my god. I was like, you know what? I knew it. I knew it was going to happen. And I pretty much reset immediately, grabbed the fixed dice off of Mog, put them on Celis, and then berserked him with Setzer immediately after I restarted. And after that, the fight was really easy.
Yeah, I think you were actually the only one of our 4 runners on stream who did the Berserk strats. I'm pretty sure everyone else
Yeah,
just bottomless
the
hit.
only reason I even had Berserk was because of the grinding that I did, because it was Setzer's natural magic.
Is that where it was? Because I could not tell. That is really actually fascinating.
Yeah, I want to say it was like his level 34 spell.
Wow.
So I literally got Berserk right before I saved it and hit that Inferno fight. Otherwise, I would not have had it for Magimaster.
That is definitely high up on the gonna randomizer scale. Between that and the early thing that we saw on the stream of Mr. Entity killing Goddess at 4 HP Mog for about a minute straight,
Oh
I'm
my
not sure which
God.
one was more impressive.
That's amazing. What really got me in the beginning is when I went to that Welk check early on and it was tentacles. And I was just like, are you serious right now?
That was a slog of a battle for most of our runners, I think.
Yeah, as soon as I had the fixed dice, I went right back there and beat him up.
Well, in terms of levels, I think you were the lowest level of the runners that we watched to dive into the tower.
Oh,
I
wow.
believe. So what sort of were you aiming for? What levels did you want to get to for the
So
final battle?
I know I'm generally good in the mid 30s, but I wanted to be like high 30s, low 40s to compensate for the armor that I didn't have.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely was a scary thing. It turned out, apparently, according to one of our other runners, Tara Omen, who unfortunately did also take a forfeit tonight, but
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
um, she did find the Minervas in Jador, apparently, for sale, probably in World of Balance.
Yeah, because I checked the World of Ruin armor shop. I didn't check the World of Balance one. Man, if I would have checked that, I would have grinded Genji shields for bucklers at the Coliseum to get a bunch of them, and that I would have blown through the seat a lot faster if I had found those.
Like you and everybody else. I don't think we saw anyone check that shop on the stream.
Yeah, I need to like just try and check it every once in a while at least, because that one I tend to skip because there's literally no reason to ever go to World of Balance Jador unless you're checking shops.
Unfortunately, did not find those, but you know what? You did an amazing job with what you had available to you. GG's Phantasmon. Did you have any other questions for Brianna?
I don't think so. Definitely GG. Great run. Any final thoughts on the seed?
It was not as bad as I was expecting, but it was far worse than I had hoped.
Fair enough.
Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
And again, GG's on a very well run race. And I think that is about going to wrap it up for us for tonight. So again, thank you everyone over here on Randomania 2 for watching. Thank you to the Randomania Network for hosting our race this evening, as well as to Atmatech, the creator of the randomizer, and of course our restream team, Asherin on the restream, Grimwolf and Franklin tracking, and Phantasmon, who has been a wonderful co-commentator for me tonight. Do you have any final thoughts?
I don't think so. It was a fun race, fun to watch. It was a pleasure to commentate with you. Thank you for having me.
All right, and with that, we are going to be attempting to send you all over to our wonderful community member Fraggle's stream, who usually one of our mainstays of the community race, is not today though, as he is in a 24-hour marathon of Worlds Collide for charity, for the Marina Dalglish appeal, for helping out families of people with cancer. I want to thank you all again very much for watching, and hope you all have a very, very good